Welcome back. So this time we're going to be looking at the Exchange UI design. We're going to create an Exchange screen. We're also going to have Eat Food functionality for all resources within the Exchange window. And we're going to add point functionality for all resources, again for the Exchange. That's basically what we're doing. It's going to be very much focusing on the Exchange. So let's get to it. So as mentioned in the previous episode, I want a way for the player to exchange food for skill points and choose what food to eat and when. I'm going to do this with another UI screen like the skill tree and objectives, but this should be the last UI screen I use. As you can see, I just copy the objectives UI and change it. I added 2 buttons and an icon for what resource will be affected. I wanted to use the bool hole collision to determine when the exchange screen should be opened. Originally I planned to have a hole on the home island where the player could store the food and exchange it, but I decided after a very quick test that it would just annoy the player to have to return home every time they wanted to eat, so I changed it to be able to open the screen wherever the player is. I created a manager for the exchange script and set up the input. I kept the bool just in case I changed my mind. I moved the skill point function that was in the player score into the exchange script and added the exchange manager, which has the exchange script on it, into the object for the click event. I added an if statement into the skill point function so that the player can only get points when they have at least 1 seagrass to trade. And I added a debug.log message to remind me that I don't have enough seagrass. Then a test to see if it's working. Now I want a specific script dedicated to the hunger functionality rather than just using the countdown script. I wanted the code for the countdown script, so I copied it over to the hunger script. I replaced the countdown script with a new hunger script and set up the values. I get a reference for the hunger script so that I can use the values in the exchange script. I make sure I can find the script, and in the eat function I created, I edit the player score hunger values, which will be called by the second button when clicked. 20 is added to the hunger countdown value, fill in the hunger bar and assign the function eat food so that I can call it with the button. I also added a small condition to the if statement, making the player only able to eat when the food bar isn't full. I find and delete the code that previously filled the hunger bar when colliding with the seagrass in the world, since it isn't necessary. Before I continue the design of the UI for the exchange, I take a quick look to see if I missed anything. I quickly added another part of the message in the debug.log to remind me that a message needs to be displayed on the screen if full. This is something I will do later. Most of the debug.log that add notifications to the player will be displayed on screen, but I will do this off camera later on. I increased the time of the hunger since it seemed a bit low. Off camera, I spent some time creating a more appropriate UI design for all the resources, but this design will probably change down the line. The left side is for exchanging resources for points and the right side is for increasing food. I also created some information at the bottom showing how much each resource will give in terms of points and hunger increase. A quick test to see if the seagrass is still working. I renamed the function to eat food seagrass as it is specifically for seagrass resource. I copy the code and rename for all the resources needed. I commented to help separate sections. Again, just a little habit of mine. I renamed the seagrass integers to the corresponding resource integer and removed the seagrass in the debug.log. The values that I added to the hunger are correctly matched to the percentages of the right side of the Exchange UI. Then the skill points is set up for all the resources just like what was done for the seagrass. This is similar process to what was just done for the eat food functions. When the functions for the skill points and the hunger increase are complete, I begin assigning the functions to the buttons next to the matching icons. I check to make sure that everything in the hierarchy is right before trying to exchange in play. I spend longer than usual testing the points and percentages are roughly acceptable for the exchange. Luckily for you, I've cut most of that out. I did find that it was too easy to get points from the food as resources such as fish was too common. I plan on limiting the amount of resources that spawn later as the amount that is spawning right now is high because of the testing functionality and not focusing on balance. I plan on limiting the amount of resources that are currently spawning later as right now I'm just using it for functionality testing and I'll do this later for balancing. Okay, so there we go, we've done it. We've done the functionality for the exchange and got the exchange out the way. The next video will be focusing more on the last touches on the skill tree and hopefully the last thing we'll do for the skill tree, and then we'll be moving on to abilities. See you next time.